Greetings, carnivores, and welcome back. I'm Dougie the Butcher, and this is Carnivore Confidential. Today's topic is really important. I want to talk to you today about the freezer. It's a necessary evil, but there is a right way and a wrong way to freeze stuff. So let's get into it. It's always, in my opinion, best to eat fresh, but that's not always possible. And we all know that great savings can be had by buying in bulk and freezing it ahead of time or for down the road. Now, here's an example of what happens inside your freezer. We've all made the mistake of putting a bottle of something in the freezer for a quick chill to only forget about it until it's too late. The resulting mess of broken glass and frozen liquid demonstrates exactly at a cellular level what happens to meat when you freeze it. Consider this. We are all made up of about 75% water. The cells, when you put this, anything you put in the freezer, the cells crystallize and the moisture inside, the water inside the cell expands and ruptures the cell walls. Have you ever noticed how when you take something out of the freezer and thaw it, it seems to be quite a bit more watery than it was when you put it in there? That's because a lot of the cells have ruptured and broken. That's why it's not a really great idea to freeze and thaw the same product over and over again, just because you're doing more and more cellular damage with each freeze-thaw cycle. Now, the second problem with the freezer is the freezer doesn't necessarily kill any harmful bacteria that may or may not be present. All it does is put them to sleep. And that's why thawing is so important, food safety-wise. Consider this. If you take something out of your freezer and put it on your countertop to thaw at room temperature, you're exposing that piece of meat to potentially dangerous temperature fluctuations, just simply because the outside of it may be thawed or thawing, but the inside of it could still potentially be frozen. Now, I know that if you cook something to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, that will kill any potentially harmful bacteria. But let's face it, folks, who likes to eat well-done meat? And 170 degrees is certainly well done. I know it is for beef. My sweet spot for a beef steak is 132 degrees, and that's far from 170. So just play it safe, folks. You don't want to invite Sam and Ella over for dinner. Food poisoning is no joke. Take it from me. I've had it a couple of times. Now, the third issue with the freezer is it's an incredibly dry environment. Modern freezers are frost-free, and frost-free designation implies that they are sucking moisture out of the air so as the frost doesn't build up on the inside of the freezer. Now, when it's sucking moisture out of the air, that's exactly why your ice cubes disappear. If you've noticed your ice cubes get smaller, that's because the process is called sublimation. That's when something evaporates without going from a frozen state to a liquid state. Anyway, that's basically freezer burn. Anything that's not properly wrapped in the freezer, just like the ice cubes, will eventually have the moisture pulled out of them. Freezer burn doesn't represent a health risk. It's just unsightly. It's not very attractive. And you can easily cut the freezer burned portion off and go ahead and cook it. But if it's wrapped properly in the first place, that won't happen. That's why I'm personally a big fan of the home storage, vacuum sealed storage machines. I'm not sponsored by anybody, so I'm not going to mention the brand name that I have, but it personally is one of the best investments I've ever made as far as kitchen toys are concerned, and I think it cost me about $160. I'm going to give you a little demo with mine, just how it works and why it's such a good idea. So, vacuum storage machine 101. This is how mine works. I'm not sure if they all work this way, but what happens is you buy these rolls of bed. The bags come in a roll like this. This one's almost gone. And it drops into the machine, but it's it's a basically a hollow tube, and you have to make a bag out of it. So you pull this out, measure the size of the bag that you want for the fish that I'm going to backpack right now. It's got a slide cutter on it. You slide that down and cut the bag off. You have to seal one end because, as you can see, it's hollow, or sorry, a tube. And in order to do that, we stick it in the machine. I always use it with this faceplate down just because I can push the bag farther in. And it makes a little noise. That just dropped a bar on top of the plastic to seal it across the back. When you're actually vacuum sealing something, it makes quite a bit more noise, so you'll have to bear with me on that one. And that's finished. As you can see, it's got a nice seal down here. So what I like to do is, I know this is kind of noisy on my microphone, but roll the top of the bag, because if you get, while you're filling the bag, I'm sorry about the noise, while you're filling the bag, if you happen to get any seasoning or moisture on the outside of the bag, it won't create a good seal, and you won't get you won't get a good seal. So I've got some fish here, some fresh Lake Erie perch that my wife's sister brought us, and I've got enough for a couple of meals here, so I'm going to freeze these in single meal packages. All right. I won't bore you with everything I have to do here, but I just wanted to show you how this process works. So once you've got your product that you want to freeze in your bag, distribute it evenly across so that you've got room to shove this back inside. Shove this back inside until it makes that noise. And once it finishes drawing the air out of it, it's actually laying a seal across the top of the bag. And in a nutshell, that is, come on baby, that is my vacuum sealer 101. And anything that's properly vacuum sealed like this, I think you could probably potentially say that you could keep this in your freezer for up to 6 months. I've got stuff in my freezer that's properly sealed like this that's older than that. So freezer burn, not an issue once you exclude the oxygen. Oxygen is the enemy, folks. That's it for today. Pardon me. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of everything I've got to do here, but come on back next week, like I said. Got lots of content in my head I want to share with you. Thank you so much for dropping by. Please remember to like and subscribe and hit the little bell notification. That'll give you a heads up every time I post something new. Thanks again, folks. Stay hungry. See you next week.